Hello, hello. Welcome back to my new series where I am talking through some of the biggest lessons that I have learned in my spiritual practice over the last few years. This is video two. I am talking about masculine, feminine energetics, unpacking the masculine versus feminine, and a lot of what I've been learning. And part of what I've been learning, I am definitely going to be bringing in from the viewpoint of being in a relationship because I've learned a lot over the last little over a year of being in a really conscious relationship that I had never learned in the relationships I've been in beforehand. So I'll come and bring that in at the end. But let me just start with let's talk masculine and feminine. Let me just define them. So this is a really big like buzz topic in the spiritual community. You've probably already come across it. Maybe you've come across it with me. I do talk about this. I do have a course about masculine feminine energetics in my womb school. I do think that looking at these energies and how we hold them is important. So masculine energy, and again, I'm talking energy, not gender, not anything like that. This is just simply the energy. So masculine energy is about connecting into that like really strong space holder, steady, safe energy. Like masculine is, I think of like, if I were to use the analogy of the body, I think of masculine as the physical body and feminine as the spirit, the energy that fills the body. Or if I were to use the metaphor of a house, I think of masculine as the house, the structure, and the feminine as what fills the house. So masculine is the structure, and feminine is the loose, flowy, creative energy. And when we put them together, that's how we create life, right? Because we need loose, flowy, feminine energy, and we need the structure and literal like container of the masculine in order to create life, in order to put anything into motion, into physical form. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about masculine, feminine. So I got into this work a few years ago and I did a lot of research and learned from a lot of people around like, what does it mean to be masculine versus feminine? What does it mean to hold both energies? Because all of us hold both energies and most of us have a dominant energy we hold. I definitely feel like I hold more feminine, and that's true for a lot of women, and a lot of men would say they feel like they hold more masculine. That's kind of the general breakdown that we see, but we all hold both. And so I've gone through all these journeys of like, how do I unlock my feminine and become more in the flow and like let go of the structure? But then also, how do I trust the masculine and like let myself have safety and like be supported? And I felt it in my body. I have worked through a lot of lower back pain and issues there, which has always felt to me like when I was moving through that, I felt like this is masculine, where I'm not allowing in the masculine to support me, and my lower back, my root chakra, my support is feeling it. So I've really like looked through and excuse me, I have been curious about these energies for a long time and talked about it, taught about it. But something has always bothered me in the masculine feminine space, and specifically talking, let's start with the feminine first. When I would look at a lot of social media and what a lot of people were saying, men and women who talk about this work, it felt like the feminine was either like in our culture, either the kind of like quote unquote trad wife energy, like you don't need to do anything, just be taken care of, or the boss bitch, like, and that's more of a feminine person in her masculine energy. And I didn't really feel like either of those fully connected with me. Like I looked at the like fully like surrender and let the masculine take care of you, like let a masculine person take care of you and be in your feminine. And like, no, that doesn't feel right. Like never felt in alignment with that. And then I also looked at the like, build, become a queen, become that energy. I've made posts about this before. If you've been following me on Instagram or social media for a while. And that also felt like inauthentic and like, no, you're forcing something that isn't actually like the true embodiment of this energy. And um that just like, so I felt this weird like I don't feel like I fit in either of these. And then there's the energy of the masculine. Like the masculine needs to be safe and just always hold space. And like, there's a book that so many people recommended I read, which is called The Way of the Superior Man. And I don't recommend it. I read most of it and then I stopped reading it because it was so toxic. Honestly, I would never give that to my partner and tell him to read it. Not at this point now, after I've like really deconstructed a lot of what this means, masculine versus feminine, I would never give it to him and ask him to read it. But I had so many people who told me to like, oh, read this, men and women, that I have definitely recommended it to people before, that before I read it myself, just saying, I haven't read this, but so many people say it's good. And then I read it and I was like, oh my God, like there was one point of the book that really stood out to me, and I've never gone back to the book. So if you love this book and you're watching and you're like, oh, you're really misrepresenting it, amazing, let me know, maybe I'll go back to it. But I got a really bad first impression of it, and by first impression I mean like I read like 150 pages of it. So I did go into it. There was a part of the book that it's for men, right? It's for the masculine holding space for the feminine. Like that's how the book is written. There's a part that's like, let your feminine, let your woman be crazy and chaotic and wild. She's never going to make sense. You don't need to make sense of her. Like your emotions don't matter, essentially, was like the gist of this part of like, just like hold back, let her emotions be there, and then you come back in when she's done being chaotic and crazy, and hold space, and that's how you have a happy relationship. And I was like, what? And I'm definitely paraphrasing, but that is the kind of energy I have seen for years in spiritual energetic spaces, like where people talk about masculine versus feminine. And I was just always just like, that feels so wrong. So wrong. Like I hate how that feels. Like I don't think that's truth. I don't think that that is a fair representation of masculine versus feminine. And I don't think that's a healthy energy to tell people to like tell men to be, the way this book was telling them to be, and tell women that it's okay to be the way that the book was portraying them. Like, no. Um, so anyway, I've been on this journey of deconstructing, like, what does it really mean? Because it doesn't resonate to me to be like, to step into the social media archetype of the queen. And when I say the social media archetype, I mean like if you go and look up masculine, feminine energetics on like Instagram, for example, you're going to see a lot of people talking about, oh, my queen energy and his king energy. And I hate that. It's like vomit in my mouth, gross. Like, I am not a queen, he is not my king, like gross. No, the way that people are talking about that, I hate it. And I'm just being really, really honest here. You can disagree with me. That's part of what the series is about. Like, disagree with me, please. But allow what I'm saying to maybe help you just think through your own opinions and your own truth, because that's how we grow. And that's how I grow, is by watching and listening to things I don't always agree with, and then, asking myself, is there truth there that maybe I hadn't been open to seeing before? Like, let me think about it. So the next thing I want to bring in on this topic is I then looked at my feminist internal archetype, basically. And okay, so then I looked at let me just go back because I had to take a little pause there. So I looked at my internal like feminist archetype, and I looked at the kind of like really radical feminism energies. And this is something that really came up a lot with my partner. Like, he helped me see a lot of viewpoints that I was really resistant to seeing. Like, oh no, like you're wrong. But then the more I sat with it, I was like, oh wow, actually, maybe some of this isn't as healthy as I thought it was. And so actually, in this whole unpacking of masculine and feminine, I have come to a point where I'm like, I don't really resonate at all with calling myself a feminist anymore. And it's not because I think women shouldn't have equal rights. It's not because I am not grateful for the fact that women now, we can have our own bank accounts and we can vote and all that kind of stuff. That's great. But I see the whole movement now as having turned into something more like man hating. There's a lot of like crush the patriarchy. And I actually agree. I think the patriarchy should be dismantled, but not because men are bad. It's because it hurts men and women. It hurts all of us and every single person within the space of living, hurts all of us, but not because I think that men are bad. And that is what I have seen so much of the feminist movement turning into. And like women can do the same thing as men, and we should have the same rights, which we should, but because we can do the same things, and it's like there's a lot of things we can do, but there are things that I don't think we women can do the same way as men, and there are things I don't think men can do the same way as women. Like I do think we have our own biological like strengths and weaknesses, and I don't resonate with the feeling or the whole like idea that we have to be the same. And um it honestly, there's a lot of toxicity in me that I've had to like uncover, pull out over the last year or two around even like the energy of women being victimized, like the feminine being victimized, being the victim. There's so much energy, especially when we look at feminist spaces where women are the victim. And it's not necessarily said in that way, but that is the energy. Like if you actually look at it, that's the energy of what people are saying, what the movement is about. Like women have been victimized and we need to shift that. And it's like, I'm not a victim. And I agree that women have been in the past 100%. There is ancestral generational traumas, and I work with women on that all the time with my clients on that. But I don't believe it's helpful to still have that narrative, because I have seen even in myself, like let me just talk about myself only, um, how much that has impacted my own ability to move forward and change my life and change my circumstances, change, do whatever I want to do in my life, because I'm thinking, or I was thinking in part of myself, like, oh, well, I'm always going to have it harder because women have always been victimized. And it's like, that's not helpful. And we're not actually shifting anything. And bringing in progress and change. And these things, these are very subconscious. Like I wasn't thinking this actively, but so many conversations I've had over the last year or so, where my partner has been really helpful, like pointing out like you're like, that's a belief, about women and women having it harder. Like that, is that really true? Or are you just parroting it? And when I sat with it, I'd be like, oh, I just learned that that's how I should feel and what I should say. I don't, that's not actually my truth. And as I say this, I wonder how many of you might be able to tap into that for yourself. Like, oh, is this all actually my truth? Or am I just really tapping into a cultural norm? Um, and I think what I have observed is that I think as a culture, as a society, the really radical feminist movement has put women in a place of always looking for where they're being hurt, um, where they are being hurt, and therefore it brings in this like self-victimization immediately. And it keeps us stuck. The pendulum has swung too far the other side. Like we had the pendulum all the way over here with like full on patriarchy, when the feminism movement started, because we needed it then. But now we've moved to here where it's like full on almost victim status. But it's like, don't say that, it's subconscious, but don't say it, because that ruins the whole like energy of the movement. And we need balance. And so that's really where I've come to, is we need balance. We need balance as a collective. We do need to get rid of the patriarchy. It's not helpful to anybody. It hurts every single one of us. We do need to have equal rights, 100%. We do need to have equal reproductive rights, 100%. Like these things, I agree with all of those things. It's more the energy that I have noticed in a victimhood, honestly. And I talk about victimhood a lot in my work because I find it to be one of the most pervasive underlying subconscious or even unconscious energies that most people carry. And when we actually root out victimhood, our lives change. So that's why I'm bringing it up here. And if you've never thought about that for yourself or resonated with it, take this as just an invitation to think about it. Um, so the last thing I want to bring into this video, because there's so much here that I could talk about, but I want to keep this, at least this first talk about it, relatively brief and easy and digestible, because I know like a year ago, year and a half ago, if I'd watched myself say this or someone else say it, I'd been like, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. So um, I want to give you just enough to give you some things to think about, and then I can always expand upon these topics later. But my next video is going to be about radical responsibility, and I'm going to just introduce that topic a little bit here, and I'll go into it more in the next video. But radical responsibility in this space and the masculine, feminine, deconditioning my ideas around what it means to be masculine versus feminine, what it means to be a feminist versus not, what it means to be anti-patriarchy versus balance for all. What that has meant is taking radical responsibility for myself, for the things I used to believe, for the victimhood that I was imposing on myself, taking radical responsibility for where I was literally hating the masculine and pushing away the masculine, not trusting the masculine, not trusting my partner even, and pushing away the masculine and being like, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, because that's what the Take Back Your Power feminist movement taught me to do. It's also, my own experiences with men in the past have taught me that, as probably is true for most women. But the thing is, when we can learn to see past that, we can see that, yeah, there are people who are hurt on all levels, right? And there are people who hurt others, and always in all levels. But that isn't the energy that we have to live in. It's not the energy that we have to continue to perpetuate. And so I've had to take really radical responsibility and say, this is no one's responsibility to shift besides myself. And I am actually only hurting myself, hurting my partner, hurting my business, hurting anything in my life, just by not taking radical responsibility for the subconscious or old beliefs around what it means um, to be in my feminine versus be in my masculine, and what the balance between the two is. And honestly, it has been such a good journey to learn how to put down the weapons. There is nothing about my feminine that I have to fight against the masculine for, nothing about the masculine I have to fight against the feminine for. We get to be in balance, and I can at least start by balancing that within myself and living that way and sharing it, and hoping that as I share, I can help others come into balance too. Because myself 2 or 3 years ago, radical on the feminine side, on the feminism side, and like thought she understood masculine versus feminine, but didn't really understand it because she was still going, the masculine isn't safe, the masculine can't be trusted, versus me now, who genuinely feels balance between the two and is like, both are lovely and safe, and I don't have hatred against one, or dislike or fear or any of those, or distrust. I have balance and respect between the two. So I hope this has been helpful. I think I'm going to end this here. I would love to hear what this has maybe brought up for you. Really interesting. My throat and my nose have been like there's a lot of energy moving as I talk about this. So apologies for my voice. It's a little off and on in this video, but I would love to hear if this has brought up anything for you. If you have questions, if you want me to expand on any of these topics, again, I'm happy to. I just wanted to keep this a little more digestible for the first video. And yeah, I hope that this serves, gives you some things to think about. And thank you for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow with another video, and I am just sending you lots of love and blessings today.